Hi everyone, my name is Logan Parks and I will be discussing new media and the influences on politics, how misinformation can affect a politician. So the rise in new media has complicated political media due to expanding online platforms. Let's start by asking a question, what is new media? So according to Southern New Hampshire University, new media is, quote, any media from newspaper articles to blogs to music and podcasts, end quote. And that was from Joe Coate, who wrote about new media earlier this year. What he's saying is that new media does not refer to one specific type or mode of communication. Some types of new media, like an online newspaper, are old media in the form of new media. So new media is related to the internet and the interplay between technology, images, and sound. This contrasts old media, which is media that came before digital technology like radio, TV, and printed materials like books and magazines. Even though there is a contrast in new and old media, do you know what they both have in common? Communication. So new media makes it super easy to send a tweet or make a Facebook post or write an email. And new media also makes it super easy for misinformation or fake news to spread and go viral. So fake news is classified as, quote, stories that are false, the story is fabricated and has little facts, quotes, or sources, end quote. And this definition comes from the University of Michigan Library. But after the 2016 election, I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with the term fake news. The 2016 US presidential campaign saw a huge increase in the use of the term fake news, which made people wonder which news sources are fake and even what people think fake news is. Is fake news really fake news? So one possibility is that beliefs about fake news reflect a bias to disbelieve information that contrasts with existing beliefs and desires. So fake news can be one of the leading sources of danger to personal security. It can change people's attitudes and beliefs. It can pose cybersecurity concerns. The list can go on, but I want to focus on how it can hurt or affect a politician's career. Fake news is a growing threat to democratic elections by relentlessly targeting views which play to the fears and prejudices of people in order to influence their voting plans and their behavior. Let's look at the 2016 US presidential election. According to the article Social Media and Fake News in the 2016 election, social media was an important source of election news, with 14% of Americans calling social media their number one most important news source. The study also shows that the average American adult saw several fake news articles 3 months leading up to the election, and just over half of those adults believed that the fake news was true. So people are much more likely to believe stories that favor their preferred candidate, especially if they have an intense segregated social media network that plays into these fake news articles. Studies show that news sources conservatives classify as fake news will be distinct from the news sources more liberal people classify as fake news. Some evidence shows that partisan differences are what comes to mind when the term fake news is even said. So people from opposing sides of the political spectrum can both view the same information as biased against their side, and people outside of the political center are more likely to classify news sources in general as fake news. And this study comes from van der Linden and their team from 2020. Politics and fake news and propaganda really isn't a new thing. This happened before new media too. American democracy has been buffeted by changes in media since the 19th century, when cheap newsprint and presses allowed partisan newspapers to expand their reach dramatically. But social media has a huge difference in structure than previous media technologies, and content can be relayed among users with no significant third-party filtering. Here's an example of how fake news and its cousin propaganda are not new. One historical example is the Great Moon Hoax of 1835, where the New York Sun published a series of articles about the discovery of life on the moon. And a more recent example is the Flemish Succession Hoax, in which a Belgian public television station reported that the Flemish Parliament had declared independence from Belgium, and a report that a large number of viewers misunderstood as true. Supermarket tabloids like the National Enquirer and the Weekly World News have long trafficked in a mix of partially true and just outright false stories. And I found this information from Sustine's research from their 2001 article. So even though their article is a little bit dated, it still shows how fake news can spread easily. So how does fake news spread so quickly? Researchers led by Dr. Oliveira found that social media users struggle to cope with information overload caused by messages that flood screens, and they are not questioning information sources or questioning whether the information has been verified by reputable organizations. Also, automated bot accounts frequently share fraudulent stories in greater numbers to add to users' confusion. In 2014, Twitter revealed that 23 million of its accounts are bots posting information automatically. And this number stands at roughly 45% of active Russian Twitter accounts today, which is a big deal because 126 million Americans were shown Russian-backed, politically oriented, false stories during the 2016 US presidential campaign. Allowing content like fake news on social media platforms harms the public interest, and it can harm a politician's career. A study from Ohio State University suggests that about 4% of Barack Obama's 2012 supporters were dissuaded from voting for Hillary Clinton in 2016 by their belief in stories based on fake news. Fake news undermines the legitimacy of mainstream news, and it can amplify a fringe message to make it look mainstream. And though the evidence of this study doesn't prove that believing in fake news caused former Obama voters to defect from the Democratic candidate in 2016, the study does show that it's highly likely that fake news pollution was sufficient enough to influence the outcome of a very close election. I've talked a lot about how fake news can be dangerous, but depending on how you look at it, fake news can also help a politician. Fake news is linked to lower trust in mainstream media, but for moderates and conservatives, exposure to fake news predicted higher confidence in political institutions, according to a 2020 Harvard study. This was not seen in more left-leaning liberals who were less likely to believe fake news. So false information and fake news frequently spread through social media due to the information overload and limited attention users allocate to questionable resources. While fake news surfaces from misinformed media, it can be combated by fact-checking and not believing everything voters see on the internet. When voters see something about a candidate, they can research them and see how they voted in the past and check their website to see what they say. And thinking before sharing something online and expanding an information network to include diverse perspectives from quality sources are a great way to stop the spread of fake news.